Welcome to the Alberta Urban Garden. Today I'd like to share with you my tomatoes. Now this is the third year that I've done tomatoes. The first year I direct sowed them into the garden with limited success. The second year I put them in a self-watering container, and this year I've tried pots only. And the reason why I've tried pots is because they're easier to maneuver, they're easier to use, it's a little bit easier to control what's going on for these tomatoes. I have had limited success in the past. However, I think with the varieties that I've chosen today and am growing currently in my garden, I think I'll have a little bit better of success. So these two here are dwarf varieties. They will stay small. I did put the cages on them to help protect against the wind so that they're not getting wind whipped. They're also determinant plants, which means they'll put on a bunch of fruit. That's it. They'll put it on, it'll all ripen around the same time, and then that's what you get. So with these two, I've not done any pruning. I just let them do what they're going to do, let them grow where they're going to grow, and see what happens. This one's pretty heavy set, and it is a sweet and neat variety. This is a patio variety. The other two here are what's called in-determinant, which means they'll continue to grow, and assuming we had no winter here in Alberta, they would continue to grow and produce all the time. That being said, today I'm going to show you a little bit about the pruning that I'll be doing on these to keep them small so that they don't overcrowd their container with their root system and draw too heavily on there. I was talk to you about the fertilizer that I use. Now, with fertilizer, you can go with a standard Miracle-Gro and you'll get fairly good results. Now that being said, I do find with the Miracle-Gro you end up accumulating salts in your soil, which means you've got to flush it more often, which means you're flushing other beneficial microbes and nutrients right out of the soil. And if you're going to be using the soil year after year after year, I just find that it's accumulating contaminants a little too fast for me. So I do use a organic fertilizer. Lots of people on YouTube do talk about using compost tea. However, here in my Alberta urban garden, I unfortunately don't have a ton of space, and it's a little too difficult for me to produce the compost tea, which is fine. So with the products that you can find at the garden centers, you'll be able to organically fertilize your plants, have great success without having the hassle of putting together compost tea. Now, one day if I win the lottery, yes, maybe I might have enough room to make compost tea, but unfortunately I choose in my urban garden to maximize the number of plants and the amount of plants and the varieties of plants that I'm putting in here, as opposed to providing the room to make compost tea. Now, the first thing that you want is the water. I have a rain barrel attached to my shed that produces more than enough water for my use. You'll also notice that it's fairly late in the day. It's about 9 o'clock at night, and that's because I don't want to be watering these at the heat of the day. Now that being said, we haven't had much heat here in Alberta over the last few months, and it has been, I mean, if you're reading the news, you'll see that there's a ton of flooding. That being said, I'm still going to stick to fertilizing about once a week at nighttime to allow for the best absorption by the plant and not causing any of the related issues, because I do a foliar application and a root application. That'll allow the plants to have overnight to soak it all up, get ready, and then hopefully tomorrow the sun will come out and give these plants the sun and the energy and the power they need to consume that food and make good fruit for us. So the fertilizer that I've picked up here is an organic fertilizer. It is fast acting. It is a 3-3-4 with about 2% calcium. Calcium is very important to tomatoes to prevent end blossom rot, which is a problem that I've had every year that I've grown tomatoes. This does come in a handy squeeze bottle. It is a liquid form. So all you do is you put that into the water that you have either dechlorinated. So if you take it from your tap and you're on city water, what you want to do is just leave that out for a day. I just leave mine on the deck, and the chlorine comes out nicely. Otherwise, if you can capture rainwater, capture the rainwater. Don't let that stuff go to waste. And you can use that directly because it does not contain chlorine. So They usually tell you to use a certain amount of scoops or pumps. I prefer the random method, just a nice little dip in here and a little mix up, maybe a little more. And as I said, I do apply this about once a week, and that just helps the fruit continue to produce. And all you do for foliar application is you water the leaves. I know it sounds a little odd, but these guys can absorb that directly through the leaves. It gives them that instant shot, and then they can bring up the rest through their root system. So I just give it a nice watering all the way around the plant to allow it to soak up this wonderful. The other types of plants that you want to use this type of fertilizer on is your peppers, your tomatoes, your strawberries, anything that will pull a lot of nutrients to produce a nice fruit. Your melon crops, your gourd crops, pretty well anything that produces a good fruit. Your leafy greens don't really require this stuff. They may require some other stuff, but that should be contained within your soil. This is really for the fruit and crops. So what you can see here is an indeterminate tomato plant, and this is my black cherry tomato plant. Now this is in an exceptionally small pot, so I want to keep this plant nice and small. Now what you're seeing right here is a sucker. So what happened, how you can identify that is there's the main stem of the plant, and what you'll see here is the stem that contains the flowers. The first stem that comes out of the kind of the crook between the two is what's called a sucker. Now you can clip this and go and replant it, but this is going to take a lot of energy away from the actual the main plant's fruit production. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip it off right at the base here. This is not going to hurt the plant at all, but it is going to help it produce more fruit. Now the other thing that I've got to do to keep this plant from getting too tall is clip off the main production arm. Once it's up and established, the plant is as tall as I want it to go. I want it to focus on fruit production. So what I'll do is after I cut this sucker, it'll continue to grow the main column. I'll cut it off right above the fruit bearing arm to get the desired height and strength of plant, and make sure that I'm not getting any more suckers. To create a new plant out of the sucker that we've just pruned. So what you do, and I'm not expecting this to grow and to produce anything this year, I just want to see if I can get the plant to go this late in the season and grow enough to, kind of experiment. So you dig a nice hole. Now you'll notice I've clipped off the leaves that will be underground. This helps keep the nitrogen where it needs to be, because as these decompose, they'll rob the nitrogen temporarily from the ground. So I'm going to bury it as deep as possible to give it a good, healthy root system that will come out from these fine hairs on here. So you just dig your hole, a little bit of hand digging may be necessary, and you fill in around it. Now you never really want to compact too hard around this, but you want to give it a nice, good, healthy watering, and we'll see what happens. This is the bed where I did have a bunch of watermelon seeds in here, and due to the incessant rains and the lack of sun and heat, I've seen a lot of production, or a lot of the seeds come up, go yellow, and die. So we'll see what this little black cherry tomato plant will do, and maybe we'll get some tomatoes out of this space. Thank you for watching the Alberta Urban Garden.